So I've been writing the script for this video for a while now, and I thought about pushing it out earlier so it would be really timely with current events in the world, but I realized I needed more time to clarify my thoughts and figure out what I wanted to say and how I wanted to say it. It was Plato who said that a wise man speaks when he has something to say, but a fool speaks because he has to say something. And I don't ever want to put a video on this silly little YouTube channel that just adds to the noise, but I want to really stand behind everything I put on this platform. So something I've been pondering a lot lately is the rise of prominent female instrumental musicians, and mostly why it took this long to happen. And I'm not talking about singers or artists, not to put down that role or skill at all, but specifically instrumental musicians. In 2000, a fascinating research paper was published called Orchestrating Impartiality: The Impact of Blind Auditions on Female Musicians. And in it, a strong argument was made that putting up a screen so you couldn't see the musician who was auditioning severely worked in favor of more female musicians getting hired to the top orchestras in the world. One really interesting thing was when they noted that it was the sound of the female musician's shoes walking across the stage to the audition chair that subconsciously influenced the judge's decision. It's like our brains can't help but try to pick up on clues and hints to try to understand reality, and those processes are always influenced by what we are normalized and trained to. Now, early on, I had actually planned on doing my own version of this study. I was going to reach out to some professional musician friends of mine, recruit some students here at the local School for the Arts where I'm an adjunct teacher, and I was going to play them some audio clips of musicians on social media, some male, some female. I'd have them pick their favorite performances and try to decipher the genders of each of the performers. It seemed like a fun video to make. But as I dug more into the topic, I found out a few years ago some researchers and data scientists went back and reviewed the study and found it less than satisfying. Some said the data was inconclusive, even at times contradictory. They said that the sample size was too small for any kind of concrete analysis, and the original authors of the paper even admit this in their own reporting. Now, don't hear this as me saying that there was no merit to the study of the impact of blind auditions as it relates to gender. I mean, obviously it will have some impact. And this is not making a point that gender bias isn't a thing. I mean, if you really believe that men and women don't experience the world in very different ways, I'm sorry, you're hopelessly naive. But the question that comes to my mind is, even if the evidence doesn't produce this overwhelming, irrefutable declaration, what was the motivation to do the study in the first place? I mean, ideas to do these things don't just appear out of thin air. It's not like a research scientist just had a crazy idea one day and was like, hey, guys, hear me out. Obviously, there was some kind of catalyst for this. So really what we're seeing with things like the blind auditions, for example, is the distillation of an idea. Oftentimes, for better or worse, we need to test out ideas before we can jump fully in, and certainly areas of sexism are no exception. So really the blind screened in those auditions is a reflection of shifting attitudes. Jacob Collier posted this really great thought about women in music on his Instagram.
There's one thing I've felt in the last few years, especially my collaborations with female musicians, it's that so many women in the music industry have such strong instincts about how music should feel, but not enough women are given the tools to be producers at a young age. It's almost like the sort of mentality that men are the producers in the industry and that women turn up and sing is horrendous in my mind. I just don't understand it. And so if you're a woman or a girl, please produce music, because I think the world needs it. In the same way that the world needs female directors, it's a lens thing. It's like learning how to see the world through a woman's eyes. It's profoundly important. And I was brought up solely by women. I'm one of 3 children under a single mother, so women is the whole of my home landscape. So I've always had an incredible sort of affinity with that way of thinking and that style, I suppose, of creating and expressing things. But please get involved in making stuff.
So this is a park in downtown Winston-Salem where Penelope and I like to come hang out, especially this time of day. The sun is setting, and it's a nice chill spot to hang out, and Penelope can run and play, and I have a clear, unobstructed view of her wherever she goes. And across from the park, there's a gym that has a mural on the outside wall that says, "Black excellence is not just the exceptional, it's the everyday." So Black excellence, if you're not familiar, is this sort of cultural phenomenon of a Black individual achieving something so impressive that the world must take notice. But it can be a double-edged sword, and perhaps a sword that we should not need. On one hand, yes, Black people do amazing stuff. Even in my own personal experience, the prowess, the innovation, the depth of artistry that I've seen from the Black creatives that I've had the chance to rub shoulders with has been staggering. But as many Black people will tell you, they are excellent in their field because they simply have to be. There have been numerous articles online discussing how Black excellence, while appearing good at first, can be a really harmful stigma because it calls upon Black people to sacrifice their welfare, their mental well-being, even their health, just to appear worthy of honor in the world's eyes. I heard someone once say that racism will be over when Black people can be mediocre and still have the same shots at success as everybody else. When really Black excellence is just being Black, having to live in the world with Black skin, and still they do amazing, exceptional things. And the same could be said about so many groups of people that should not have to validate themselves to be taken seriously. The fact that Black excellence even exists as a concept, or that there is a felt need to study the impact of blind auditions as it relates to gender, is indicative of a larger problem, and it's about normalizing things. As a young boy first getting into music, it was rather unremarkable for me to pick up instruments and teach myself and try things and branch out and embrace the process. That's because in almost every field, that's pretty normal for me as a man. But young girls carry a very different expectation. If a young girl wants to pick up an instrument, she has to be perfect before she can let anyone see her do it. I'm allowed to be in progress, but a female doing the exact same thing has to be complete from day one. Now, when I come at this topic, I'm not just speaking as a professional musician, but also as the father of a young girl. My daughter is 3.5 years old and has shown a high interest in music. She sings all the time with surprisingly accurate pitch. She's obsessed with the drums and has already started displaying certain stylistic preferences. And if she seriously wants to pursue music, I mean, first of all, God help her, she'll be a third-generation musician carrying on whatever curse I inherited. But if she does, I want to give her the keys to the kingdom and tell her to just run in any direction she finds exciting. Not to belabor the point, I don't want her to be just a singer. Now, singing is a legitimate artistic discipline, and I personally know plenty of other musicians who know nothing about music outside of their chosen instrument. But for some reason, our culture has dictated that singing is the only one in which women are taken seriously. We don't take female drummers seriously. We don't take female guitar players seriously. Female producers, get out of here with that nonsense. To the larger music world, female instrumentalists are still considered a novelty. Beyoncé famously put together an all-female band for her live shows, and many female artists have done the same since. But no matter how much those female musicians can absolutely shred, the fact that putting that band together was bold or noteworthy at all is itself a big part of the problem. The Emmy Award-winning show Schitt's Creek was noted for how it rather quietly portrayed a world where homophobia doesn't exist. Without drawing any attention to it, you just get to watch these characters live and interact and grow in an environment where prejudice for sexual orientation is just blissfully absent. No matter what my daughter wants to pursue, be it music or something else, this is the kind of environment I want her skills and passions to be cultivated in. One where the unfair expectations that come with being a woman are seen as foreign and abnormal, so when she goes out into a world that wants to put that on her, she's not affected by it because her foundation is stable. I'm going to encourage her the same way my parents encouraged me as a boy, which is just to chase the joy of doing something and not put on her the pressure of having to be great, and just reinforce the message the culture gives her that if she isn't the best, she doesn't matter. If being a mediocre musician makes her happy, that's awesome. I just want her to love the process, and I'm going to trust her with that process. When I was young, the best thing my parents did for me was leave me alone, not try to micromanage my practice or my development, but gave me the space to fall in love with the process, not the goal. The number one reason that I am the musician I am today is because I love making music, not being great at music, not being admired or respected for being great at music. I don't care about any of that. I fell in love with the journey of trying and failing and trying and succeeding and experimenting and switching things up and getting sidetracked and making ridiculous noises and accidentally stumbling into something that speaks to me on a deep level. And that's what I want for my daughter. But the world is going to try to force her to be perfect, or compare her to other female musicians, or try to make her music about something other than the music, and I will be damned if I'm going to let those evil influences in her head. Not as long as I'm her father. But what's even more terrifying is that if she doesn't play along, if she doesn't fit into whatever version of perfect the world has created, she'll be shamed, she'll be rejected, she'll be controlled. Some would argue that we live in a world that hates women. I think most of us could probably agree we at least live in a world that doesn't fully trust women. We think they're not capable of making big decisions, of choosing for themselves, of being leaders, of being full, equitable contributors to society, completely ignoring the immeasurable contributions they've made to society from behind those barriers since basically the beginning of humanity. So we take away the rights that we don't think they can be trusted with, like until 1848, the right to own property, until 1920, the right to vote, until 1938, the right to earn minimum wage, until 1947, the right to sit on a grand jury, until 1963, the right to get paid the same as men, until 1984, the right to be made partner at a firm, until 1990, the right to have sexual harassment against them may be taken seriously, and until recently, the right to make the choice of what's best for themselves medically. But that got taken away too. So as I'm sure just about every human being on the planet knows by now, 7 days ago at the time of this video, the Supreme Court made a decision that, according to pure objective statistics, will not move the needle on the problem that they're trying to solve, but according to almost every expert on the matter, will definitely lead to the preventable deaths of thousands of women. And I don't know what to do. I just don't know. I mean, as a white male of reasonable economic standing, I suppose people are more inclined to listen to me, but I got nothing. I'm not that smart. I have no realistic solutions. This is way above my pay grade. I'm just a musician, and I suppose I'll go back to talking about music stuff because that's what this silly little YouTube channel is for. I'm just heartbroken. I'm just heartbroken. And if you're heartbroken about this too, maybe consider visiting the link in the description of this video. Let's be serious about dreaming of a better world for my daughter to grow up in. That's it for today. Thank you so much for watching. I say this at the end of every video now, and no matter who you are, I mean it. I love you guys.